delighted to launch the second edition of Steve Cate's book. Steve is a good example of what we say to our prospective students at Open Days. That is that at RMIT we teach economics and economic thinking, not mathematics pretending to be economics. Steve has some very interesting views on economics and economic policy, and as you'll see from the blurb, this textbook arose out of him getting frustrated that the standard textbooks didn't do what he felt they ought to. And he's subsequently worked on that, and we have a second edition. He's going to tell us a little bit about the background of the book and the book, and then we'll have our guest speaker also reflect on it. So Steve.
Okay, thank you. I'm not sure I was actually intended to talk about the book, but I was going to talk about the author instead because, well, the first thing I want to do is thank Peter for coming, and it's, I'm really truly grateful for Peter coming to launch the book tonight. The last time, and I'm reminded that the last time we actually spoke together on a single program, it was the post-budget breakfast in 1995. And I was speaking as the chief economist of the Australian Chamber of Commerce, and Peter was speaking as the opposition spokesman on Treasury matters. And so the interesting thing for me is that we've both gone on since then. Peter went on to become Australia's greatest treasurer. It's not a, this is not a title that's going to get lost very soon either. But the thing that I think about when I realized it is that he went on to become treasurer, and I went on to write this book. And what this book does, it does something that is quite extraordinary, I think. What I used to say when he was treasurer is I say, you know, we're going to go through whatever number of years it turns out to be that he was treasurer, and at the end of it, no one will know what happened. No one will know how it was done. I mean, I used to hear people say, oh, look, it's easy to be treasurer. The economy's going so well. See? And I'd say, you know, it's not that it's just going so well. It's the way it's being managed is the reason it went so well. And, you know, it is, people say, oh, just stroll along. What I've actually written, and I'll come to it in a minute, is I've written the book that explains why it worked. Well, this is theory, Peter's policy. They are different worlds. And they overlap occasionally, and sometimes someone actually just by instinct gets it 100% right. Just does it. But if you want to know why it worked, if you want to understand the principles behind it, that's what I say, why you should say read the book. Now, I'll tell you a bit about myself. Unless I want to do this as a biography, as how I moved along into getting to myself to write this book. And I used to be the chief economist of the Australian Chamber of Commerce industry, and much of it was dealing with political and economic issues. And I'm going to take you back to a bit of the story of the people I've had to deal with, and when I've had to deal with, the things I've had to deal with. And I take you back to the first recession I ever had to deal with. And this was in 1981. And we were fighting something at the time which was the 35-hour week case, and which ultimately became a decision in the commission back in the end of 1981. And the decision was to raise wages by 18.5% and to cut the hours of work from then 40 to 38. You know, it was like, what are you doing? Are you people crazy? But the craziest one of all was the minister. And on the day the decision was handed down, it was exactly the day the decisions were, the final submissions were given at the end of that decision. It was the 18th of December, 1981. And we had the Christmas party first at ACCI and CAI in those days, and then we had it over at the ACTU. And coming to the Christmas party was the minister, Ian Viner. Now, you know, I would like to think that what I said to him, you idiot, you idiot. Although I really probably said to him, well, I don't think that was a very good decision. But it wasn't even that he made it, it was his reasoning. He said, because this was a decision between the ACTU here and the Mines and Metals, the Industry Association over there. And he said, look, if they come to an agreement as adults, well, we're the government. We're not going to come in there and try to tell them what to do. So, ACTU, we went to our first art Christmas, and then went to the ACTU Christmas party, which was flowing with champagne. Everybody was all thrilled. And then there was me and my colleague standing in the corner. You know, the only two guys with the longest faces thinking, you know, this is going to be a disaster. And it was. Within a year, I remember the ACTU president, Cliff Dolan, talking, saying, oh my God, he's saying unemployment. And it went up to, from something like 3 or 4 to 11. We had 11% within a year. Economy just died. So I thought, why could no one see this coming? Anyway, there it was. We had the wages pause, and that did lead to the kind of recovery that we ended up with. And then we had, everything went trudging along. We had the Accord, and we had the Hawke government, and Keating ran things. And then in 1987, if you go back, there was this famous share market collapse in 1987. It looked like we were going to revisit the Great Depression. And everybody went absolutely, like this was terror. Everybody thought we were back in 1929. This was like a repeat year. And so we went into 1988. And you know, it was really funny about 1988. Because everybody was scared, it was clear everybody knew what to do if you really wanted to make an economy work well. And what they did, this is the only time Keating ever balanced the budget. He balanced the budget in 1988. At the same time, this was the year I became the Australian Financial Review Forecast of the Year. It was easy. Alan Kohler went around, that was Alan Kohler, he went around and he asked everybody, he said, look, what do you think the probability of recession is? What do you think? How likely is it? And he went to all the banks and all of this and all of that. And it was, oh, they're going 30%, 40%. Oh, no, it's almost a certainty, you know, economy's going to die. He went to me and he said, what do you think? 0. Well, you know, effectively 0. I'll call it 2%. You know, there's always something might happen. And sure enough, 1988 turned out to be one of the really great. You go back and look at the statistic, the things were just going fantastic. But everybody was moping, things were going to be a disaster. And in 1989, I mean, I was thinking, look, you know, you got to get the act, you got to get it right here. Come on, folks, this is not a bad economy. I wrote an article that almost got me sacked at the Chamber of Commerce, and the article was called An Australian Economic Miracle, with a question mark. And I remember to this day, there was this cameraman meets Bob Hawke up at the steps of Parliament House, and he sticks a microphone in his face and he says, the Australian Chamber of Commerce says it could be an Australian economic miracle. And it's like, you know, I was like, this is what? It's ACCI, the business. And so it was like he couldn't believe it, but you know, wow, what are you talking about? Okay, fine. But there was, the economy picked up. picked up, it just went like that. And it went like that to such an extent that the treasurer said, hey, you know, we're overheating. And I don't know if you remember those days, but he said, we can't have this, we can't have all this economic growth, and they covered it with interest rates. So I spent from 1989 to 1990 just saying, don't do it, what are you doing? Are you guys crazy? Crazy they were, economy collapsed. Into 1991, 1992, down, started to pick up again, comes 1995, you know, they raised interest rates again, they brought them down, they raised them, oh, we're worried about inflation again. Economy starts tanking. And it was just in time for the 1996 election, perfectly timed. So the 1996 election, out with the old, and in comes the new government, March 1996. The budget that year, I think it was in August, they pushed it back a bit just because the budget knew the government had just come in, you couldn't have it in May, so they waited a bit. And I take you into the lockup. So I'm in the lockup where I have all the political types are in there. They keep us away from the journalists. We have our own small lockup. And I went in there, and so you got everybody. And I picked up the budget. And you got to see, you know, this was the one time everybody else had the long face, and this was people, wow, this is amazing. They're cutting spending, what is it, 7.2 billion, it was incredible. It was like, chopped away. And the others are going, not just the welfare organizations, not just the unions or whatever, it was everybody. It was all the other employer associations were sitting in there, and they were going, oh, this is awful, this is terrible. So, the Australian Chamber of Commerce and Industry, which is my organization, came uniquely, the only organization actually came out and said, this is a great budget. This is a great budget. And when they did it again the following year, cut some more, not as much, but they cut it again the following year. We kept saying, what a great budget. And I will reveal something I'm not supposed to, but I do know. And that is that before the 1997 budget, Treasury was going to, the Treasury was saying, all these top guys in Treasury saying, look here, the economy's not going well. You've got to reflate. You've got to increase spending. But he held the line. This is true political bravery. He held the line in 1997. Anyways, not only did we have two continuous cuts in public spending of serious amounts, but we also ended up with the Asian financial crisis that begins in 1997, goes into 1998. And it's at this moment, all our major trading partners dropped dead. No, they're not buying, they're not importing, everything's going bad. Australia suddenly hit 5 to 6% growth. We just took off. The Australian economy just took off, and it never stopped taking off. For the entire time from 1997 right through to the global financial crisis, this economy just went like a rocket. And not only do we have balanced budgets in every year, except for the year of the GFT, we ended up with something that no economy has ever done. We had zero debt. I don't know if you remember this. We had just no deficit. We had no debt. This economy just floated away. It just boomed along. Tax cuts every year, welfare increases every year, just went on and on. So I'm just getting point out that you wouldn't get that in your standard Keynesian economics text about how cutting spending will lift your economy. So we come to when I wrote this book. So certain people, for reasons I still don't can work out, got kind of like bored with success, bored with but you know, everything's going so well. So they actually changed government in 2007. Then we had the global financial crisis of 2008. And at the end of 2008, everybody starts to raise public spending. And I said to my head of school, I said to the people I was teaching course with, my colleagues, I said to my students, said there is no book around that will cover what I want to say. Nope. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to write one. What I'm going to do is we have 12 week semester here. Each week I'm going to write you one chapter. And by the time Monday rolls around, you print out the chapter. That'll be the book. But by the end of 12 weeks, that's the only book you'll have. And at the end of 12 weeks, I had a book. I polished it a bit, but this is what it was. So the first edition was published in 2011. Just essentially those chapters that I pulled together. What I said was, if they put up all the spending, if they do all this expenditure, the world's economies are going to go back. They will never recover. It'll be like Japan in the 1990s. You think public spending will lift you, and the reality is public spending will drag you down. It will drag you down, and it will ruin you. And so I have had the, well, you can say pleasure, but whatever it is, I've had the experience, both because I've seen Peter's cuts to spending cause an economy to take off. I've seen all these increases in public spending pull an economy down. And this is the book that explains it. It'll also tell you why it was a disastrous mistake yesterday to have lowered interest rates. A terrible mistake, an absolutely terrible mistake. Chapter 16 and 17. So I just want to say there are three things in here that make this different from your standard economic textbooks. We talk about invisible hand, we talk about market forces. There's only one market force, and it's called the entrepreneur. This book is about the entrepreneur. No other economic textbook I know of is about the entrepreneur. If they're in there, I went and looked, I did a paper just the other week on this. I looked up every introductory textbook. Half don't even have the word in the index. They don't even have the index. If they mention it, it'll be 2 pages from page 387. This book, the very first, if you go to the definitions, the very first thing you come to, it says, okay, what's the very first definitions? And it is the entrepreneur. Because if you try to think and understand about how the economy works and you don't think it comes to entrepreneur, you will never succeed. The second thing that's in here is value added. Not sure it's the second word or the third word in here, but value added. In an economy we talk about nowadays, because of the Keynesian menace, we have this aggregate demand. It's an economy that gets pulled along by aggregate demand. You know, more demand. I saw them this morning in the newspaper. There was our current treasurer talking about how great it is. Interest rates have come down, and we're going to have aggregate demand. We're going to get consumption up. I thought, no, it doesn't get it. An economy is driven by its value-adding activities. Nothing else. The word that you would use, I'll use it, if you were way back in time, it'd be called Say's Law. But the reality is that what Say's Law really says is the only thing that pushes the economy along is value added. And the third thing that no textbook really does, they do mathematical equations for it, but they don't do it. They don't actually build in the concept of uncertainty, that when people do things, they are standing here in the present, and the future about which they're going to spend the next $1 billion on, or whatever it is, even thousands of dollars on, is out there, and it hasn't happened yet. And they don't know what's going to happen, and they're going to risk everything in the present for some totally uncertain future. No book does that. They pretend to talk about uncertainty, and they do not. Economics lost the 3 most important issues, that give experience, and without them you cannot make sense of an economy, if you ask me. So I just say to you, if you want a book that'll tell you how to, it makes it as clear as day. And I'll just tell you about the cover, just to do, I got 1 minute left. The cover is a motif. It's got this water mill, on a bed of clay. And because the two most important economists to me, and I tell you the two greatest economists who may ever lived, are John Stuart Mill and Henry Clay. And so with that, I give you the President Peter Costello.